Hey there, listeners. Welcome to Hines on Air, your weekly dose of inspiration, motivation, and real-life entrepreneurial stories. I'm Matt Hines, your host, and I'm excited to have you join me on this journey. From building a successful law firm to venturing into other industries like real estate and social media, I've experienced both the triumphs and the challenges that come with entrepreneurship. I've learned firsthand the importance of resilience, adaptability, and a relentless pursuit of excellence. On Hines on Air, we're diving deep into the world of business, law, and personal growth. Join me as I chat with incredible guests who have faced adversity, defied expectations, and achieved extraordinary success. We'll discuss their strategies, their mindset, and the lessons they've learned along the way. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply someone looking for a little inspiration, Hines on Air is for you. Remember to subscribe, like, and leave a review whenever you listen to podcasts. Your support helps us reach more people and continue sharing these incredible stories. Let's get started.
Hello, everybody. It is Matt Hines. We are back with another Hines on Air. We've got a very interesting show for you today. It's a topic I think we all need help with, and it has led to a lot of disagreements and problems in relationships at all. But we have a specialist on board. Her name is Melissa Pavone. She has a company called Mindful Financial Partners, and it's a health, wealth, and holistic financial planning services. And she helps basically people who are having trouble. And I think, Melissa, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Is it mainly with relationships, or is it any type of like a marriage relationship versus any other type of relationship, like a business, or is it everything?
Yeah, so I just really help with financial communication, right? So depending upon if it's within spouses or within families or business partners, really help to get clear on what you want to do with your money, and how you want it to work for you. And, sometimes it's just within yourself, right? Like you don't know what you want to do. So it's just becoming really clear and intentional about your investing, your spending. And I think there's a lack of communication around money.
Yes, there certainly is. All right, so is this just the strategy that a couple or a business partnership should discuss, or is this like the actual investing of it and how to use that money to make more money? Or is it all of the above?
Yeah, it's all of the above, really.
Okay.
But a lot of financial advisors just focus on the investment aspect of it. And I think the financial communication is really the foundation. I always say we have to really learn from our financial past to invest in our financial future and be present today. And I think it's a balancing act, right? Because when you're in a relationship, you're coming in with a different money mindset than that other person. And you might have grown up very wealthy, right? And the other person could have been self-made or grown up very poor or didn't have that communication around money. And so everyone views money differently, and money's super emotional.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot to unpack there to kind of say, like, hey, what does money mean to me? What does money mean to you? How do we see money together? And then how do we want, our family to see money? And generationally, really like breaking down those communication barriers, because in the past, you didn't know how much your parents made, right? And you didn't necessarily have an allowance. You didn't talk about these things. And so to become really clear about those conversations within your immediate family, I think is very important. And so that's kind of the premise of Mindful Financial Partners, is to have that clear financial communication. And then from there, you can start investing and making decisions. But that financial communication is really the foundation of it.
All right, so let's say newlyweds, everything's going fine. There aren't any problems. We'll get to the problems later on. We'll take it with the easy stuff first. So newlyweds, both middle class, they're okay. What would you say they need to discuss in order to maintain stability, kind of make sure they're operating as a team versus start going against each other? Where do they start?
So I think that's a big thing. I have another company called Money Matters in Marriage, and it helps just that. Younger couples who are starting off, who might not have a lot of assets, right? They might not have a lot of They're not at their full earning potential yet, but they just got married, right? And they're so happy. They had this big wedding and the bachelorette party on the bridal shower. That now really, once you think about it, all the fun stuff is over. And now there's two people who, again, have different views on money, different money mindsets, different money history, are coming together to build a life together. And what does that mean for them and to them? And so there's no like class, right, to talk about. There's not like a college class or a high school class to talk about finances and mixing finances, because marriage is a financial obligation as well as a legal obligation, right? So to have these conversations in a non-threatening manner, they created a quiz, and it really stemmed from the fact that in addition to being a certified financial planner, I'm a certified divorce financial analyst. And so I deal a lot in the divorce space. And unfortunately, a lot of divorces are due to the lack of financial communication.
Yeah.
And it really didn't sit well with me that like people were getting divorced and they didn't have the tools necessary, right, to overcome these things. And so I said, what if the younger generation had resources and had tools to open these lines of communication to talk to their partner or their spouse about these uncomfortable conversations without it being a fight, right? Because sometimes we just avoid things because we don't want to deal with them. And so we kind of like brush them under the rug, and then it kind of snowballs to the point where we can't ignore it anymore. And then unfortunately, sometimes it leads to divorce, ultimately. And so this quiz, it's called the Money Mindset Discovery Quiz, has couples go through and answer questions. How do you feel if a family member were to ask us to borrow money? Like, how would we answer that? Should we have joint account or separate accounts or both?
Good.
What are your thoughts on insurance? Should we have a tax advisor or should we do our taxes ourselves? Very simple questions, but thought-provoking, right? There's no right or wrong answer, but you want to see where you align with your spouse and where you differ. And it's okay to differ, right? It doesn't have to be perfectly, you guys answered 100%
right
across the line. But then that gives the opportunity to have that further discussion on like, hey, are we going to have to take care of my mother-in-law? And what does that mean for me? Or am I responsible for your student loan debts? And like, let's make a game plan for that. So I think really the key is communication, and the earlier you have these conversations, the better. And it doesn't have to become this like terrible thing. It doesn't have to be like, oh, we're having this. I want it to be fun. I coined the term like financial date night. Like, let's get your favorite takeout, a bottle of wine. Let's, plan our vacation, and let's go over, our balance sheet. Let's go over our spending plan. Let's go over, some of these things that we need to talk about for next year. And I think that will hopefully decrease the number of people coming to see me for divorce.
No, I think it's a brilliant idea. Did you write those questions?
I did.
Those are good. Those are good questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I would think if a guy or a girl starting in a relationship, guy wants to be a billionaire. Well, that means the woman or the spouse is going to be home a lot with kids if they want to have kids. And so that takes some communication, because if he starts leaving after the birth of a child and she's like, what are you doing leaving me alone? Like, I need your ass here in the house with me changing diapers. And he's like, wait a minute, I need to make $1 billion. So that's a discussion that needs to happen sooner rather than when it's too late later on.
Yeah.
Well, good. So do you find that if they start communicating about the finances, or at least maybe reveal secret expenditures that weren't disclosed earlier, can it help repair the marriage or the relationship?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think communication is key. And you just brought up, I just thought of one of the questions when what you said. There's a question on there that's like, how much money can I spend without disclosing it to my spouse?
A good question.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's always a good question, because you don't want, and regardless of who the breadwinner is, or if you guys if one person doesn't work, or if you equally make the same amount of money, sometimes everybody has their own things, right? What are your non-negotiables? Like, I don't want to tell you or ask you if I'm going to get my nails done, right? Like, My husband loves surfboards. He's a big surfer. He wants to buy one surfboard a year. We kind of have like a threshold to be like, hey, over this amount, we need to have a discussion. Under this amount, go at it.
That's a good deal.
And again, it's more of a respect thing to be
Right.
like, hey, like this is where we're going. And you check in with one another to kind of see where we're at. And it helps align your financial goals too, right? Individually, but also together as a couple. And
That's
say
right.
like, hey, let's start saving for this vacation. Or, hey, we have this home improvement project we've been wanting to do. How are we doing on that? Let's see if we can, double down, tighten up our spending so that we can get, that new bathroom we've been wanting to do.
That's good. And I am certainly in favor of more financial freedom for each partner. Like, don't, when you have all these rules, like you have to, I would imagine if a couple had the agreement that you have to agree on everything, my God, it's almost like you're working, you have a boss in the house. I couldn't live like that. To me, it also makes the other one want to hide. Like they feel like because they're probably going to not remember everything, or I don't know, be able to just come clean on every penny that's spent.
Yeah.
Then you're put in a situation where you might feel like you have to hide from the other one. And that's a slippery slope. So I don't know. I've been in 2 marriages. The first marriage, and both people were great. I don't have any problems with either. My current wife's wonderful. My ex-wife is a great person. So, but the first marriage was joint account. Like we shared accounts. Now we keep separate, and I'm certainly a bigger fan of keeping separate. I don't know how y'all do it.
Yeah, people ask me that all the time. They're like, should we do joint or should we do separate? And,
I'd be like,
and again, there's
separate.
no right answer.
Yeah, right. There's not. I don't know.
Yeah, and personally, my husband and I, we each have our own account, and then we have a joint account, so we do both.
Okay.
And sometimes people say, like, should we contribute equally to the bills, or should it be proportionally based upon your income? And again, no right or wrong answer, but have that conversation so there is an expectation and there's not any resentment in the future, right? And like, it's not like we're signing up for this for the rest of our marriage. Things change, income changes, job changes, and it's a partnership, but there needs to be that communication and obviously the ability to be able to pivot.
Yeah. And then you get into these assumptions like, well, I did the bill, so I assumed you'd do the daycare. Or and even though it wasn't agreed, it was kind of like, why aren't you doing it? Of course you would do it because I paid for this. Anyway, I'm saying the conversation should be had, not the assumptions of what's going on.
And it doesn't have to be painful.
Right.
That's the goal, right? It could just be like, hey, let's grab some takeout. Let's talk about this. We got to do this home improvement. We want to plan this vacation.
Right. That's the fun stuff. When you can play the game
we have some
together.
like upcoming purchases coming out. So, where do we want to allocate this money towards?
Right. And when you can have a good joint goal, if the vacation is going to be $5,000 and it's in 6 months and you each got a plan, all right, I'm going to do this and put this aside. You're going to put this aside and work together. That's fun stuff. That's what, to me, relationships are built on, is the creativeness, creating the future together. Well, cool. Give me a good example. All right, let's say you've got a business partnership, not marriage. What have you done in the past for a business partner? Because those to me, I've had 3, 4, I don't know, several. And they are great when they're great. And they're a freaking nightmare. Yeah. It's hell on earth. What would you say? I mean, I'm sure it's kind of the same discussion. Like, all right, what do you want? What do you?
Well, So one of the things that I always talk with is the structure of the business. And part of this comes from the fact that I do a lot of divorce work, right?
It is.
So if you have 2 people that are business partners, I play the what if game. And I'm not a doom and gloom person, but I'm a financial planner, right? So I am hoping for the best and preparing for the worst. And that's my job. And that's why people pay me. And so when I see 2 business partners and they're like, hey, come look, we have some money to invest. Before I even go into the investments, I want to see the documents for the business. And people are like, why do you want to see that? This is boring. Let's get into the money part. And I'm like, that is not as important as how we structure everything. And so oftentimes they own the business together. And so I'll sit down and I'll say, hey, okay, business partner, well, Bob and Dave, like all right, how are we doing? Bob, both, everyone's happily married. Everything's fine. Okay. Dave gets a divorce and he like kind of looks at me. I'm like, Bob, do you want to have to liquidate part of your business to pay off your ex-wife? And do we have the liquidity to do that? And I kind of get like the blank stares. We're like, okay. Scenario number 2, Bob passes away. Dave, do you want to be in business with Bob's wife? No, more blank stares. So it's that planning piece of things that are not just investments that I think are really important and people overlook.
Absolutely.
So in those situations, there needs to be buy-sell agreements. There needs to be some insurance to create some liquidity.
Can you tell the audience?
There needs to be some business valuations done.
Can you tell the audience what is a buy-sell agreement?
Sure. So in that situation where I forgot who I killed off first, Bob passed away, and now Bob's share of the business is now, depending upon the structure of how they had the business, would go to his wife. So if Dave does not want to be in business with his wife, what they could have done if they structured this property, they would be a buy-sell agreement with Bob and Dave saying, Bob, if something happened to one of the business partners, the other person would be able to buy out their spouse. And in order to fund that, they would have a life insurance policy and say, hey, Bob dies, Dave gets the proceeds of the life insurance policy, takes that cash and buys out his share to his wife. So the wife now has a liquidity event, she has assets, and now Dave is the sole owner of the business and doesn't have an ex-partner's spouse as a business owner. And sometimes people do part of that equation, but not the second half. Sometimes they get the insurance, but they don't get the legal document, or they get the legal document and they never fund the insurance. And so I like to come in and kind of dot all the I's and cross all the T's and make sure everything is done really properly, and be your financial ally through the process. Have like a fiduciary third-party person there to kind of pick holes at all of the things that are going on, to kind of play that what if game, to make sure that we are hoping for the best but planning for the worst.
That's good. And just a division of duties, like, can either partner agree to make a $50,000 purchase, or does it have to be voted on, or is there somebody over Treasury that makes all those decisions, or who's over hiring? Is one person as far as for hiring? Like, it could get complex. It's fun to think about the big dreams and the fortunes you're all going to make, but decision making and seniority. And there was a funny, I don't know what made me think of this when you were talking earlier. This is a horrible story. It really doesn't pertain to what we're talking about, but it's worth mentioning.
Go for it.
All right. Two partners, 50-50 ownership, and a secretary. Secretary doesn't own anything. And one of the partners, secretary had been with him for years. And one of the partners, I forgot the names. Let's say her name's Sandy. One of the partners says, you know what? Sandy's been with us for 10 years. She's loyal. She's always helped us. I think it would mean a lot if we gave her 1%. And the other guy's like, I guess that sounds reasonable. Why not? Good. So they give her 1%. So now it's 49.5, 49.5, and 1%. Fast forward like 2 months. I'm messing this up, but you'll get the gist. The partner and Sandy now have voted him out, and they pretty much have control of the company, and he's gone. I'm sure he had to give up all his money, but they basically got majority ownership right under his nose and kicked him out. So proper planning, good idea.
Yeah, that's
it's
important.
It's a scary story. Okay, cool. Now it says, let me ask you what this means. How individuals and couples approach health, wealth, and holistic financial planning. Holistic. Does that mean anything in particular there? Is there any?
No, I think it goes through beyond the investments, right? Like looking at the money mindset. I think that's important. Your emergency fund. Before somebody says, hey, here's some money, I want to invest this. I won't just go take your money and invest it. I need to see that there is 3 to 6 months of living expenses earmarked off for an emergency fund that is completely liquid in a high yield savings account or money market account that we're not going to invest, that God forbid you lost your job or something tragic happened, you had that. That is like the number one rule. A lot of people won't follow that, and they'll just, oh, someone has money to invest, let's just invest it all. It's really important to have that emergency fund, no matter where you are in life.
So your rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months of all living expenses set aside.
Yeah.
Okay. And
completely liquid, high yield, just earmark it off to the side. You don't dip into it. You don't touch it until you really need it. I'll go through your insurance, your life insurance, what you have at work, what you have personally owned, make sure that the titling is correct, the beneficiaries are up to date, and that you're paying the right amount of money and that you're not overinsured or underinsured. We'll go through and meet with your tax accountant and say, hey, are we being as tax efficient as possible? Is there a way that we can maximize our retirement accounts now because we're in our high earning years and save? We had to change, we're changing our jobs, or there's like a pause in jobs. Should we do any Roth conversions now because we're dropped a tax bracket? So I work very closely with your other trusted advisors to make sure that everyone's talking to one another. I always say there should be an estate planning attorney, a CPA, and a CFP. And the three of us really have to know everything about your life and talk to one another to make sure what you want is actually being executed. And if one of us is making a change, the other parties need to know because it impacts the other aspects of your life.
That's a good idea. Those three, that combination. Let me ask you your opinion on something. We had another gentleman on our podcast several weeks ago, and he was saying that you can pay a financial advisor lots of money over the years. And if they're not getting not substantial, but even over the S&P 500, which you can do on your own without much training in finances, and which is pretty reliable historically. He's like, you need to take your, what has your financial planner done for you? What kind of yields, return on investments, compared to the S&P? If they're not really beating that, if they're not at least beating that to pay for their cost, just go to S&P 500. What's your comment on that?
So it's two things, right? So that's an investment advisor, someone that just does investments.
Right.
If you're paying someone for investment management, you want their fee, you want them to be compensated. A lot of times people are compensated with assets under management. So a percentage of the assets you give to me to manage, I take a percentage of that as my pay. The thought process is the better you do, the better I do. We're on the same side of the equation. So yes, right. There's that.
Okay.
There's also the thought that there's fee only financial advice. And so what I do is provide all of those ancillary holistic planning that's not just investments, right? So part of my fee can be flat fee based and has nothing to do with managing your investments and taking a piece of that. So I understand that gentleman's point of view for an investment advisor only who's just doing asset management. But I think there's more to really holistic financial planning.
No, that makes sense. I wasn't trying to put you on the spot. I realize that could be.
Yeah, it's okay. Everyone has their opinions. Yeah.
Okay. I apologize if that seemed like I twisted that one up. That wasn't my intention. Okay, cool. And I think honestly, what you do for people should be legally required. It should be. I mean, they should send every new marriage application to you and say, all right, let me schedule a time, because divorce rates are too high. It's a shame half the time.
Yeah.
I think I've seen so many divorces where fast forward 3 years after the divorce and the two would actually have been fine together. They just needed to make it through that rough spot. I've seen that. And finances, that is it. It's hard because I've had tough financial times, and life's not fun. It is easy to find an enemy when you're broke. I mean, it's easy to blame. I didn't ever get into that with my ex-spouse. We hung together pretty well, actually, but life's just not fun. It's not. So
Yeah, it could be challenging. And that's why sometimes having a neutral third party as part of that really helps to kind of keep everyone respectful and focus on the facts, right? Because there's a lot of feelings when it comes to money and emotion based upon the situation, based upon guilt, right? Based upon, all the things that resentment we talked about. And so having a certified financial planner be that kind of financial neutral to kind of play, I don't want to say the mediator role, but be there to give advice to the couple as a whole is really powerful.
Right. And just having the plan, if I want to spend, I don't know, $1,000 on a television, which is high, whatever you think it is, I shouldn't have to worry, will my wife be upset? Like, there should be an agreement that it's okay, or I would have talked to her, but just to hold on to that, was this a mistake? I don't know. That to me adds up. And, you take 100 of those little, was this a mistake sort of things in people's minds, and you're starting to see a separation to some degree in the relationship, I feel.
Yeah.
It would be good to just have the agreement. But anyway, okay. Well, Melissa, listen, fascinating topic. So important. So I think it's again, like I said, everybody should go to you. Every parent, if you're listening, every fiance or whatever, if you hear this, call Melissa, do the consultations, and take the advice, because it's so important.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on your show today, Matt. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your time. Appreciate everything you do. And yeah, thanks for being here.
I'll talk to you soon.
All right. See ya. And everybody, thank you again for joining us on Hines on Air. I do want to thank our sponsor, which is Law Offices of Matt C. Hines, and also Bravos Leadership. Bravos Leadership will be hosting a huge leadership convention here in Atlanta on June 21st. We'll have more information about that in the comments. But listen, thank you again for joining us. I hope you got some information and were inspired by what we discussed. Take advantage of this. Contact Melissa. Melissa, we can include, do you want to tell us real quick your website or phone number? How would somebody contact you if they wanted to take advantage of your services?
Sure. My firm's name is Mindful Financial Partners, and it's just mindfulfinancialpartners.com.
Okay, good. Nice and easy. Mindfulfinancialpartners.com. Call Melissa. Take her advice. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please comment below. Share this video and like us on YouTube. Tell us what you think. Did you disagree? Do you agree? Have you taken advantage of some of these activities or suggestions, and did they help you? But anyway, we welcome the feedback. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you on the next Hines on Air.
Hines on Air is for you. Remember to subscribe, like, and leave a review whenever you listen to podcasts. Your support helps us reach more people and continue sharing these incredible stories.